When I left Christianity and fundamentalism, I realized that churches teach their members, regardless of sex, that women are expected to do the emotional and physical labor of domestics, taking care of the kids, cooking, cleaning, laundry, childcare, travel, getting their kids from home to community events and back. I spent 30 years in Baptist circles, listening to my mom, counseling, and being a friend to cis heterosexual soccer moms or hockey moms. The things that they told her that I overheard, women were basically expected to do everything in the home. And unless it was a repair, discipline, or leadership, everything else women were expected and required to do. Anything less, and you were considered the worst type of biblical woman imaginable. Men just had to show up at the house, and if a kid needed to be spanked or someone needed to lead, those were the only things men did besides bring home a paycheck. Even though most of America requires two incomes to make ends meet. See, most people in America can't even live the biblical expectation of male providers, females nurture anymore. They can't afford it. So right off the bat, you know that the biblical principles of men provide, women submit, and nurture isn't even realistic in 2025. For most people in America, it requires two people to work to have what one income in the 1950s could provide. Billionaires and people in charge made it so that you can't survive on one income unless you are in a rare career or have some form of multi-generational wealth or luck. The average person in America requires 3 jobs to barely have savings. The Christian expectation of the nuclear cis family isn't realistic for 90% of America. It just can't happen if you actually want to have money in the bank and own your house before you retire. Probably the number one reason I refuse to ever get married or have a traditional hetero relationship is that women are required and expected, like biblical womanhood hinges on the idea that women do everything in the home and men do everything outside the home. And women should be grateful if a man even comes home. That is just bare minimum. You're supposed to raise kids equally, together. Both are supposed to discipline. Both are supposed to transport kids to events and school activities. Both should be equally shouldering and helping each other with the tasks that they have selected for adulthood. And if you're the type of person like me, about 45% of women on this planet right now, especially in America, don't want to have traditional relationships where children are included, or they do have traditional relationships, but they opt out of kids. We call that child-free. And some women just don't have the choice. They can't afford it. 1 out of 3 couples have infertility issues, which there is nothing wrong with that, even though society has a stigma. Women are lucky to have their own money and to equally provide for their kids. Our country in America just doesn't care about single women. And they block abortion, they block federally funded child care. Just recently they did that. They don't want you to abort a kid, but once you finally are forced to have a kid, they won't help you after the fact. They shame you for being single and having a kid. They cut your child care funding, and for the rest of your life, they put a label on you that says social failure, even though it's BS. There is no time that religious conservative Christians consistently want to help women who get pregnant on purpose or by accident in a single situation. Women are expected to do probably 90% of the emotional labor and domestic expectations. Imagine in our society if women behaved like men. Just showing up and expecting to be noticed and appreciated for just showing up. Imagine how dinner would look if women just showed up. Laundry, taking care of kids. Imagine women just showing up, doing nothing, just showing up and only lifting a finger if it's a gender thing that's permitted by men. There are men, celebrities, men podcasters that actually boast that they've never changed a diaper. That is a red flag. Even people who can afford nannies, if you're not contributing to your own kids' success, future, and safety, I don't care what you are, you're not a good person. Unless you have a medical condition where you cannot get out of bed and take care of your kids. Anything besides that, you're a bad person. People who don't take care of their kids and they have opportunity, they have a job, they're not good people. If you can't help your kids, if you can't give them a good tomorrow, let someone who can and will adopt them. Our society forces and expects and punishes women who aren't the caregiver, nurse, hooker, maid, party planner, taxi driver for everything that goes on in the family, and the personal assistant. If a man doesn't know where something is, you bet the woman knows. Because she has to. Because nobody else in that whole nuclear family is going to do it or help her to get there. I refuse to be in a traditional relationship where my existence in this life, my hard, invisible, unpaid labor is the only reason why the world keeps turning. If women didn't do 90% of emotional, psychological, physical, unpaid domestic labor, the family unit would collapse. Because men do not consistently do their fair share without getting an award, any gratitude. They actually think that giving their wife 2 hours off every week is a gift, even though they're his kids. Imagine that. Imagine thinking you're a babysitter with your own kids. Imagine telling your wife you're a good man because you've taken the kids for 2 hours this week. Why aren't you doing it every day for hours? When you come home by 7 p.m., and this is for people who work 9 to 5, 8 to 5, by the time you get home for dinner, you should work several hours cleaning, cooking, childcaring, preparing kids for the next day, especially if it's a school night. If women have to come home and work entirely a second shift, unpaid, and you get twice as much free time as she does, you're a bad partner. You should get no more free time than she does. Even if she has her own job, Women, on average, work 16 hours more a week than men do unpaid in the home. And you add the idea that home is the most dangerous place for women, and that every 10 minutes he will probably kill her. Women aren't getting paid. They're not getting the respect they deserve. Their partners, who are lucky to give the bare minimum, want to be praised for taking care of the kids they chose and are the reason why the kids exist. It's ridiculous, the things that women are compelled to do. If women didn't do 90% of emotional labor, our society would collapse. And men say that it's important for women to do these tasks. But if the men in church would never help the women doing what they do, nursery, setting up potlucks, helping other women, if you think that's beneath you or it's not your gender role, you're not a good person. You're part of the problem. And when women are incapable of helping men because of the rules of the church, where they won't let women help men or be in control of men, they make it impossible for women to hold spiritual leadership, to witness and help men, because that's a man's job, even though that's stupid. Men only want to be leaders when it's advantageous for them, it gets them something, it strokes their ego, or they don't have to take accountability for something. The moment a man has to take accountability for his behavior, his actions, his speech, the way he exists, that's the moment he says, I was never a leader. And once all women wake up and say, you know what? I'm tired of pushing our relationship like a rock uphill because it's just going to fall down again and I'm going to have to push it up without any assistance. What's the point? If a relationship drains you, makes you wish you could take a vacation, where it feels like you're taking care of a child but they're not a child, these are red flags. If your partner doesn't make your day easier, your work less demanding, if their presence eases, calms, and makes your day the best part of waking up and existing today, you have the wrong partner. And of course, there's caveats, especially if people have illnesses, diseases, or something like paralysis that they can't control. I'm talking about fully functioning, mature adults who are partners that have no physical or psychological ailment prohibiting them from being a full-time partner. If your existence alone compounds stress, increases her cortisol, doubles her work, frustrates her, you're not a partner. You're another child, another issue, another problem she has to fix. And as long as we let men have good lives because of the invisible, demanded labor, we are teaching our daughters that this is acceptable, that you don't deserve equality, and we're teaching the next generation's men that this is how you are a leader, young man. This is how you treat women because they're less than us. And that's not none of those lessons or anything you want to even teach your pet, let alone your children. People treat their pets better than they treat their own wives. That is terrifying. If your wife doesn't look forward to you coming home because she knows that you will be there to help, to hinder any kind of bad thing in her life, because that's your job, to make her work easier, stress lower, goals easier to achieve. If that doesn't happen, you're bad for her. And if women can't do that, she's bad for him. There is no equality in marriage because the gender roles, the expectations, the social experiences, they always expect, demand, and punish women who don't do almost everything by themselves. And if your relationship only survives because you do things and expect things that make your mental health worse, maybe that relationship just doesn't need to continue. Women develop autoimmune conditions because they can't rest. They can't do anything but think about how they can make their relationship better. That's not a good relationship. If you're more tired when your partner's there than when they're not, that's not good for you. And women will die earlier in life because of the stress and just the feelings of hopelessness. Because women, you are alone. The structures put into place by the patriarchy and under marriage set women up to be dissatisfied, unhappy, rejected, and alone. And if you don't choose somebody, man or woman, who makes your life easier, life more worth living, and lowers your stress and cortisol, you will die before your prime. You will aggravate your body, your neurological system, your lymphatic system. And if men see it beneath them to help clean, cook, give their kids a bath and put them to bed, not as a treat because you're a guest, but because it's your job without needing to be thanked, because that's what an adult does, you're not worth a woman's attention. And women are getting much more smarter than they used to be 50 years ago. You have to bring a lot to the table before a woman will even acknowledge you exist. Life's hard enough without having to take care of a man like a child. And you better be the best choice out there, or women just will not waste their time. Because women get very little out of traditional relationships. And if my cortisol and my mental health conditions increase and get worse because you're in my life, I'm cutting you out of it. My family and siblings taught me everything I need to know about toxic, shallow relationships. I just rather go through life by myself with interests than be married and just be miserable. Your health is the most important asset you have. And if a man or a woman isn't going to make your life 5 times better by you being in it, leave. Don't stay for the kids, because you'll be patterning bad behavior to your kids.